Or if you click on yourself.
Oh, you found it.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah. Oh, I'm at Paparori School in the far north.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Paparori School. Awesome. So what year levels do you have?
I've got year 3, 4.
Ah, very cool. Very cool.
Classroom like this.
Nice.
So it was an ILE last year, but it's changed to a single classroom this year.
It was what's an IR? What's that?
Innovative Learning Environment.
Oh, okay.
Open plan.
Okay. With how many students?
We had 54 and 2 teachers last year.
Ooh, that's a lot.
It was cool. We had 2 breakout rooms, offices, all sorts. So, yeah.
Cool. That's really cool. Okay, so we've got Janice who's joined us. I'm not sure where Janice has joined us from, but she's online too.
Hi, I'm at Rafiti School in Christchurch and also St Pat's in Kaiapoi.
Oh, cool.
So I'm doing the modern learning with 190 kids and 2 days a week, single cell, which is, it's funny going back to a single classroom.
From how many did you have before, sorry?
So yeah, Rafiti is I think there's about 19 for teachers.
Wow.
And 2 days a week I'm single cell at a Catholic school, 21 kids. So it's quite a change in headspace.
Yeah. How are you managing that?
Sorry?
How are you managing that?
Okay, actually. Yeah, it's just, well, I've got a student teacher at the moment, so it's fine. It's actually, I get quite lonely on my own.
I see. We're a couple of minutes off, so there's just 3 of us at this stage, but yeah, hopefully the rest of our people will jump in soon. So, who have we got? Kia ora, Courtney. How are you? No.
Hi, Courtney. Hi, Brogan. Hi, Brogan.
Hi. We'll just leave it for a couple more minutes. And
I don't know.
Otherwise we'll jump in.
Do you know the movie?
Not sure what's going on there. Alright, a few more. See if that was done. I think I might have confused people when I sent 2 different links. So I've got people who are in the original Hangout, but the original Hangout I couldn't enable comments. So I'm just going to ask them to jump over to us now. Okay. Oh, flip. This might be Fiona. Kia ora, Fiona, is that you? Oh. Okay, I in order to enable comments, I sent out a different link to everybody. Okay. How do I get them to jump into the one that the rest of us are in? Okay, hang on. I'll send this to you. Sorry, people. Oh, sorry, Limbo. we've got people in the original Hangout. One moment, I'm just going to send that link through to Lenva. And also to Fiona.
Yeah. But can you jump into the original one? That's where they are now.
Okay, so right. And ask the others to go back into the original one?
I think Fiona will prefer them, rather than getting them to change, we could just go into the original one.
Okay. All right then.
Okay.
Right, see ya.
Okay.
Sorry, team. I've been asked to ask everybody to jump back into the original Hangout link. So if we can just kill this one and jump back into that link, and then we'll take things from there. Okay.
No worries. See you soon.
See you soon. Right. Kia ora, team. Kia ora, everybody. Cool. So you can hear me?
Yeah, we can. Sorry, I let everyone know that there was just a bit of a hiccup with the links, so we're all set to go, Hinaro.
Okay, cool.
I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Fiona. So kia ora koutou. For those of you who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name's Hinaro Anderson. I'm originally from a small place called Te Teko in the east of Bay of Plenty. I've been up here in Auckland now for the last 18 years. Head of technology at Tamaki College, and I teach digital technologies at Tamaki College as well, primarily to year 10 through to year 13 students. So yeah. So what I thought I'd do is that I'll just go through the VTaL site that I'd created and navigate through the site, and then from there, any questions that people have about the VTaL site and how it works, or etc. Yeah, we'll take it from there. So, whoa.
Just Fiona here again, Hinaro. If anyone has questions while Hinaro is going through the site, if you just, on the left-hand side of your screen, there's a blue speech bubble. So if you click that, you'll be able to access the group chat on the right-hand side. And if you add any messages or questions in there, I'll manage those for Hinaro. Thanks.
That's gone a bit crazy. Okay. Okay, people, are you able to see what's happening on my screen? Give me a thumbs up if you can.
No, Hinaro, what you'll need to do is if you click on your VTaL tab, because you're still on the Google tab, so it's giving us a really interesting vision.
Yep.
That's it. You've got it now. Perfect.
Cool.
Well done.
Excellent. Okay, so this is the VTaL Visible Teaching and Learning site that I've been working on the last couple of years. And as it states here, the purpose of this site is to enable teachers to have an understanding of the purpose of visible teaching and learning and how that can be effectively used to accelerate learning. And that's happened, how this came about, not necessarily the site itself, but how my journey with visible teaching and learning came to be was mostly through student feedback, but also the number of classes that I was teaching, which was a lot. So my journey with visible teaching and learning started at least 8 years ago, where I had a couple of Year 10 classes, a multi-level senior class, a couple of Year 9 classes, as well as some intermediate classes. And every time I had all these students coming through, every week, I had to sort of figure out ways in which I was trying to communicate information back to them about their progress, where everything was going, what was going on, etc. And so, to stop me from getting lost and stop the students from getting lost, that's how a lot of these resources came to be developed. And then the students were telling me that they were finding it useful. So that's how this site came to be. So with this site here, you've got your home page. If you just were able to scroll down a little bit on the home page, it's just got some quick button links here to different VTaL tools or visible teaching and learning tools. You can also go through to the navigation bar on the top right hand corner of the site and click on that to get into different VTaL tools here. I should have a drop down box actually. What's going on there? And a link to I must have had a muck around, to VTaL Google Plus community. So anyone can join this community. Yeah. And then there's a link to my blog. But let's get back to the site, the VTaL site. So if I go into subject sites, every single page in the site, in the VTaL site, is basically set up with the same structure. So if we go into the subject sites section, there's just an overview of what the purpose of subject sites is in terms of visible teaching and learning, which you'll see here. And then how the site has been set up, this part here. And so this is something that we do consistently with our sites at Tamaki College, is that our sites need to include a course overview for our different year levels, subject calendars, and information about teaching and learning. And then we'll scroll down a little bit. We'll come back to this one again soon, because through the site, through the subject site, is how a lot of these other different VTaL tools come together. So I'll come back to that again soon. So there's a link to an example there. I've included a section of links on each page on how different examples of teacher practice. Many of these examples come from my own practice, what I've reflected on myself, and then in some cases, as we go through the other pages, you'll see that other staff members have also included some of their reflections on the different VTaL tools. If we scroll down a little bit more, there's also some reflective questions that I've included straight from practicing teacher criteria to enable people to make that connection of the relevance, I guess, of that particular VTaL tool on teacher practice. And going down a little bit more, there's also a connection here to how that particular VTaL tool is relevant to different principles of learning. So there's that one there. Scroll back up. We go back into, oh man, I really shouldn't have played around. Sorry folks, I'm going to have to go back to the home page to get everywhere else. So the next part is learning activities. Now really this part here, I mean, people can communicate their learning information through to students however they wish. I've just given how a template slide deck has been created to enable students to receive instructions this way. Once again, though, you've got a little brief overview up the top of learning activities in the VTaL Toolkit, the purpose of them, a little template there that people can access if they chose to. These links here via the VTaL Google Plus community go off to how different people are doing their learning information. So Karen's done hers with regards relating back to solo. Again, teacher practice, reflective questions, etc. Going back to tracking sheets. This one has been a really popular one, the tracking sheets, which I'll go back to in my subject site soon. What it's really, really useful for is it gives students an idea of what's happening in terms of formative feedback about where they are in a project. So it doesn't go into detail as to what needs to happen next with the tasks that they're working on, but what it does enable is for students to have a snapshot of what tasks they've completed within a project so far or within a unit of work, what tasks they're still working on and which ones they haven't started. This is really, really, the students find this really, really, really useful. And actually in my blog there is some student reflection or student sharing about how useful the tracking sheets have been, which is really good. Same setup. Reflective questions, etc. Where are we at? Oh, student checklists. So this one's slightly different in that the last one, the last tracking sheet, that's updated by myself. So when I turn over marking, I'll update that tracking sheet. Excuse me. This one here is where students are able to link work that they've completed for whatever aspect of the unit that they're working on into the student checklist, and they can track themselves as well. At high school, we use this for either internal or external moderation. So when we submit our work digitally to NZQA for marking, we're able to use these student checklists when students upload their evidence. I'd say I use this more with seniors than with the junior students, only because I teach the seniors for longer periods of time. Where are we? Calendar links. So what I've started doing quite a while ago, back when the VTaL journey started, was using calendar events with the students so that they can track what it is that they're supposed to be doing any day that they come into class. So it's particularly useful in our environment, in the secondary school environment, where students are transitioning. So for us, we have 6 periods a day. So when they're transitioning 6 times during the day, it enables them to know exactly what they should be focusing on in that particular lesson. So once again, when we flick back to my site, it hopefully will make more sense how these things all work together. There's some links there to different ways in which the calendars have been used. Workspace. Now, workspaces is something that I've only really gotten into last year, and now I deliver a lot of my work through workspaces. But don't be, if you're not not in Hapara and using workspaces, don't be deterred by that. It's just, I guess, another way in which I'm incorporating it into my my Google site, my subject site. And so I'm putting information in. Clearly it needs a bit more updating over here. And some links to examples of teacher practice. Getting back to here. Right, where are we up to? Workspaces. Student sites. This is just something that I do mostly with senior students. It's another way that they're also submitting their work for moderation. So just communicating the information through a site only for a particular subject. So yeah, same sort of thing there. What are we up to? Oh, Google Plus. Yeah. So this is a really big deal, and especially in our senior subjects, is students sharing their work or examples of their practice in our Google Plus communities, and being able to see examples of how their peers are completing tasks that meet criteria. It's a really popular way of the students collaborating on their ideas. So yeah, I'll get back to that soon when I go into my site. Again, a whole bunch of links back to examples of teacher practice, etc. All right, nearly there, folks. Right, yep, and student blogs. Okay. And there's a whole world of craziness going on. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with this site. Okay, so examples of student blogs, how we're doing, and different examples of teacher practice around how they're being used at senior school. So yeah, that's all of that. So what I think I'll do now is I'll just shut all these tabs. Drive my computer crazy. And I'm going to shoot straight over to my Digitext site. Well, actually, I'll go via here because you can access it through this VTaL site. Right. If I scroll down and click on here. So this is my subject site. So I've got it set up for different year levels. And in each year level, you'll see that we have a course outline, we've got a calendar. So if I go into the calendar, so this is what I was referring to before in terms of one of the VTaL tools and the use of the calendar within the site, is at the students. So today I had the students at 2:10. And if I go in here, click on that, that's just a little instruction just to say, so this particular one here, the students know that that is the workspace that we're working with, and that is the activity that they're expected to be working on in today's session. So today's lesson, they were doing activity 1, task 2 within this workspace, and then they will navigate to that workspace. In here, we've got examples of different projects that the students are working on. So this is the teaching and learning. It's embedded into the site. And it should be consistent. Well, I've set it up to be consistent for all year levels. So if I go onto the Year 12 site, go onto the Year 12 calendar, and go into what they were working on this morning. So I had the period one this morning, and I've just dropped in a link in here. So refer to the class tracking sheet. So this is the unit of work that they're working on. That's the class. This is the unit of work. So they're doing technology terms. So there's no actual credits associated with this unit of work. It's just they're doing technology terms. The focus is research, and they're expected to complete the research, the outcome task. Now if I go and click in here, this is what tells the students where they're up with different tasks that they're working on. So according to the instructions, the students are actually here on that particular task from the calendar post. Should have been working on this one here. The reality is this is what is currently happening with the work. So from some of the students, the greens just represent that they have completed the task, it's been submitted, and it's been sent back to them. Orange is that they've started the task. So they may have started it, submitted it, and I've just sent it back for some minor alterations. And red is that the task hasn't been started. So immediately when you're looking at this tracking sheet, when the students are looking at it, or when I'm looking at it, it gives a snapshot of where everybody's at. The positive thing that the students take away from seeing where their other classmates are is that they'll often go and get help from their classmates. So these ones here have finished the task. And this is what happens with the junior students as well. They can see where they are in terms of tracking through work. This is not associated with whether or not students have achieved achieved merit excellence in a project. It's just whether or not they've completed tasks. Thought I'd just better clarify that. Yep, so that was a tracking sheet that was dropped into the calendar post. What else do we see in here? Oh, yep, our communities. Oh, hang on, actually. Oh, so there's also a tab that links down to student blogs. It just makes it easy for the students to be able to go, and for myself as well, to be able to go and find the students according to how they're set up here at Tamaki College. So I've included that link into the year level. Some information about communities. So if we go into this community here, just having some loading issues. Anyway, it operates like a normal Google Plus community where there are different categories, etc. And students will load up their work according to those different categories. So that enables them to help each other, to guide each other's learning and learn from each other's learning, I guess, and share each other's learning. And sometimes I'll throw up something, whatever it is that I've taught during the lesson, take a snapshot and throw those up as well as rewindables into the community for the students to access. So let's just see, conceptual design. And this has been, I've maintained these communities over the last couple of years. I had to start them up again from scratch because I hadn't set them up properly from the start. But there's still a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of resources within these communities that the students can access. What else? I guess that may be right. I think I might stop presenting and just see where everyone's at in terms of any questions that might come through.
Hi, Hannah, it's Fiona. So no questions at the moment in the chat, but that could change. So I just thought, if anyone's got questions, you could turn your mic on and ask, or if you're a bit shy, you can pop it in the chat. That's not a problem. Just while we're waiting for questions, because you're in a secondary context, I was wondering if, I wasn't sure whether most of the teachers in the Hangout at the moment are secondary or if there are any primary.
Yeah.
So I think we can see definitely when you've got a lot of a lot of classes and a lot of learners,
Yes.
that consistency around the setup
Yes.
has been really valuable for you, so that learners are being able to navigate quite quickly. How have you found, say, for some of your year 7 and 8s
Yes.
who have come in, how they've responded to that too, and maybe what have been probably some of the strategies that you've used that's made most difference, say for the younger learners, so that perhaps maybe if there's full primary teachers here, they might be able to make a connect there.
Yes. Actually, that's a good point. This year I'm not teaching 7 and 8s, but for the first time in a long time. And I say that in that, so at Tāmaki College here, we have all of the feeder schools within our Manaia cluster come in to Tāmaki College for technology across different specialist areas. And so prior to this year, I was in that loop of intermediate teaching as well. So the really good things that were happening in terms of enabling the learning to be accessible for the students and easy to enable them to get on with work was still that same setup. So still that same setup of having a year 7 drop-down box or year 8 drop-down box, because we'd still only have them for 1.5 to 2 hour sessions each week. And so that's a long break between when we would actually see the students again. So when they would come in to Digitech, they would just take a seat, and once we got into the habit of knowing that the way to access the learning was via the My Digitech site, so the students just got into that habit. So the students would sit down, go into the Digitech site, go into the calendar post that would have a link to the instructions, so it would often have a link to the learning activities, as well as a link to the tracking sheet. So the students got into the habit of doing that, and which is different, obviously, to understanding the instructions. So accessing the learning was one thing. That was also really, really good, as well as that time difference from one week to the next. Sometimes we'd still be dealing with students who might turn up slightly later during the session, and it minimizes, it minimizes that interruption. So when students arrive, they'd still know to come in, take a seat, access the learning, and they could see where they were at, so they could pick up on where they were supposed to be going to. I didn't necessarily mean that they understood what they were supposed to be doing according to the instructions, but that's okay, so long as they could access the learning, and then of course I'd kick in and try and clarify whatever it was that they needed to do. So going back to what Fiona was asking, what were the most beneficial things in terms of the way that this VTaL setup has worked for the 7 and 8s was rewindable resources. So the fact that they were able to see, so if they were absent and they turned up, and they were able to see what happened in the previous lessons according to that tracking sheet. Also where they're at in terms of work that should have been completed and work that still needs to be completed, and what they should be focusing on in that particular lesson. And basically also accessing all of the information through one portal, that being the site. So, yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I definitely, I think what I'm hearing, and I mean, this would be applicable, I'm thinking for even year, year 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that have all got class sites, that as long as keeping it consistent. So when whatever the portal is that they arrive at, they know it's very clear visually what they click on. Not too many clicks, and it's always the same navigation, like pathway through.
Yes.
So when new learning is added, they're going through that same process, because what you're wanting is, from what I'm hearing you saying, you're wanting them to be able to get to that learning quickly, at the beginning, but also too, if they miss the lesson, if they're away, that they know where to go to find it.
Yeah.
There's a question here from Carolyn. Have you seen any change in the students' engagement in the tasks? Have there been any improvements in student achievement? What have the students voiced to you about rewindable learning?
Yes, that's it. Okay, there's different tiers in that. I'll try and answer that. What I've experienced with the, especially with the tracking sheets and how the students access the tracking sheets through the calendars, or also through the workspaces embedded in the site, because that enables them to see where they're at and they can see what's happening ahead of them. It enables students who have completed tasks to keep going and not be held up by students who might need a little bit more support. So it's also enabled different elements of differentiation to take place in terms of student learning. Something that I hadn't anticipated when I first started putting those tracking sheets together, and I sort of alluded to it before, was how students started to identify themselves, or amongst themselves, who had completed other tasks. And then they would go and seek help from those people to progress through tasks. That said, even though it's great in terms of tracking, as a classroom teacher, it's and still understanding that students learn at different rates, it's sort of not ideal for me to have students who are working on activity 2 and a whole range of other students that are on activity 12. You sort of want to keep that that gap, sort of 2 to 3 activities is fine, because otherwise the whole idea is not really to have a system where some students are sitting on tasks at the beginning for weeks and weeks on end. That's really kind of a pointless situation. Really, for me as a classroom teacher, it gives me an idea of where the students are at, gives the students an idea of where they're at for the whole point of progressing them forward. But it does enable that other element of differentiation by level, I guess. So, yeah.
And there's always that important question that it may, around achievement.
Yes.
I can talk a little bit about achievement at Tamaki College, since you and the other teachers have been using the sites.
Yeah, so I have found in my classes that with just the ability to be able to feed back in that snapshot, especially through the tracking sheets, has enabled achievement to be visible for the kids so that they can see where they're going forward. And so, yes, that has had an impact on achievement. It hasn't been foolproof, because as you can see, even from that example that I showed, that there are still some students that are sitting on reds or orange or whatever the case may be. But it makes it faster and easier to identify who's where in the big scheme of things, to kick them with some different strategies or whatever is required to move students forward. The whole point, though, is that it is enabling people to move forward, or the students to move forward. It's enabling them to move through the work or through different levels of the work. So in terms of achievement, yes, it's definitely had a positive impact on student achievement. So, yeah.
Sorry, you just cut out for a little bit at the end for me, but I think if anybody didn't hear what you said there, they could ask again. Do that. How many students, or if you had feedback from students around being able, the timing for, because they're able to access that learning at times outside of the kind of 9 till 3:30,
Yes.
That's had an impact on maybe their approach to learning or their engagement in learning?
I'm only laughing because this is I don't want to freak people out in this hangout right now, but I just am laughing because I had a student who he didn't meet the deadline, and so he had an extension on a project, and he's has this habit of completing tasks at 1 o'clock in the morning. And he was asking me whether or not, in class time, whether or not I would be available to provide him feedback at 1 o'clock in the morning. And so I said to him, I said, well, I'm not sure why you're choosing to work at 1 o'clock in the morning. I probably am not going to pick it up until maybe 7 o'clock the next day, but and I'm certainly not encouraging you to do that at 1 o'clock. Why can't you do it at 9 p.m. at night? But just the mere fact that we're having these discussions between myself and the student, it sort of gives an indication is that the student is accessing the work and wants to turn tasks over and also wants me to give them feedback at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I guess that may answer your question, Fiona. That's not normal for all students. Well, they're not asking me all to do that at 1 o'clock in the morning.
It's great to hear the enthusiasm. I would probably recommend that it's a good conversation to have around expectations of when I'm. And I actually have heard a teacher, a secondary teacher, would actually say to learners, "I will be online from 7 to 7:30 maybe on a Tuesday night." So if they want to, connect then. But I think it's probably very important to have, to set those expectations, because I wouldn't be, thinking that you would be available at 1 o'clock. But it is an interesting conversation to have for definite. Yeah. But that's the empowering part of this, is that, learners can make those decisions about connecting outside the 9 to 3:30. But again, too, it's managing that as well.
You're quite right. I mean, I'm having a giggle about it. But as you're quite rightly saying, the reality is we don't want to be functioning on sort of crazy time. And you're right, we do have to have these expectations without sort of killing the students' enthusiasm. But we do, in order to be able to function properly, just let them know, that's right, timelines when we're free to turn things over. So.
Okay, thank you. Probably just one other question. No other ones now. I feel like I'm monopolising you, but
you've just dropped off, Fiona.
It's a little treasure at the moment. So with the calendar, I was thinking there too, is that because you can add, especially for the older learners, I can see the benefits of actually going from a calendar, because it gives them specific dates and times, and also if you've got, due by dates and things like that on them. But you can link, like if you've got all of the content around a certain piece of learning on a page within your site, you can link directly there from the calendar. That's right. Which I think is important, because this is one of the really strong messages around the use of the digital for learning, is that is keeping or having all of this available together and not in isolation, so that it is in one place and you can access learning support materials or resources that making links for the learning. And then at the same time, a challenge for teachers is also, how does that work in the real time during when they're at school with you? So if it's all on the site and they can access it, then what's happening when they're with you? And then that opens up a whole new world, because it changes what can happen in that face-to-face when you've got a site and have it all organised and set up like you've demonstrated. It means that it enables us to explore different ways of connecting with learners in the real time, in the face-to-face, that we didn't have before. And especially around those kind of low-level conversations of organisation, those conversations can potentially then be a lot above the line in terms of learning.
Yeah, I think too, essentially, what building on what you're just saying in terms of having the learning all in the one place or accessible through the site, is that it has, and using the calendars, etc., so that the students it's the access to the learning instructions, where they're at, their progress, etc., is that it has meant that you can maximize the learning time in class. So prior to doing all this, it could have taken, I don't know, X amount of time just to settle the students before you actually get constructive learning time happening in a particular period during the day. But this way, the students have access to knowing what they should be learning and where they're at. And so it's just the actual time of teaching and learning that's taking place. I don't know if I've sort of expressed that well enough, but it's their whole actual getting on with the teaching and learning as opposed to trying to find what the students are supposed to be doing.
So it makes it visible not only for them but also for you as well. And I think that's the real challenge for us as teachers, is to actually look at how we're engaging with the learners in that time that we're with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a secondary school, you're maximising the 50 minutes or the 55 minutes you have with those learners.
Yes.
It's a little bit different in the primary school because you typically will have them, a longer time to connect with them, the face-to-face. All this content, I've got all this learning, it's accessible and it's visible. So how have I changed my practice? If I'm still doing things the same way, then you're not really harnessing the real strength, the real value and potential of having, the digital, the sites and the setup. You can have it all set up there, but it won't make a difference unless you change as well.
Yeah.
I feel like I've monopolised the question time a bit there. People, has anyone else got any questions? Feel free just to turn your mic on and jump in or type in the chat. We've got 1 minute left. It's a 45-minute session. So no other questions there. Would you just like to kind of wrap it up then?
Yeah. Feel free to, if you feel like you need to or would like to contact me, email me about anything you think, oh my gosh, she just flew through that way too fast, way too crazy, or anything that you want access to, please feel free to touch base with me. So I'm not sure if that's available anywhere, but it's anderson@tamaki.ac.nz, or you could probably find me through the Manaia Kalani page somehow. So
is it on your site, Hinaro?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah,
At the bottom of the site, you can navigate to the bottom of the site and find me through there. So, yeah. Or if you have questions later on, you want to touch base, feel free. That's absolutely fine. Yeah.
Okay, well, unless one last little wait time, anyone? No? Okay, so Ngāhi Nui Hinaro, thank you so much. It's appreciate the time and also the resource that you've shared. There's lots there to look at, and I think regardless of whether you're teaching in a secondary or a primary context, there's some some strategies and some things that you've shared there that are going to be really useful. Yeah. Thank you, and of course I've recorded this as well. So I'll there's a folder on the online toolkits. It goes with the slide, the link, to your site. So I'll upload it there. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Ka kite koutou.
Oh, Edwina says she's going to try the task sheets with the juniors years 3 and 4.
Nice.
Woo, go, Edwina.
Fantastic.
I'm sure they'll love that.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, ka kite.
Ka kite anō.